So you bought a house with a rental unit in it. Great. Get some tenants in there, start collecting rent to help you pay your mortgage. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But what happens if something goes wrong? Hi everybody, welcome back to the Real Justine Priestley channel. I am Justine Priestley, your local realtor here in the Greater Vancouver area. As always, reach out to me anytime. I'm here to help and I'm here for you. In this video, I'm talking to Jim Garnett, the president and founder of a company called CTI Services, which is a tenant inspection company, and he is here to help. Smoosh the light, smoosh the light, smoosh the light. How does your service help realtors?
One of the things that we've become very involved with just lately, in British Columbia at least, is the 2-month notice, which is a notice that can be given to tenants advising them they have 2 months to move for landlord's use of the property. In the case of a lot of real estate transactions these days, somebody might be purchasing a house that has a basement suite or whatever. They'll give a notice to the tenant advising them that they have to move. What used to take 6 to 8 weeks now takes 8 to 14 weeks as an example. The tenant has 15 days to dispute the 2-month notice. If they don't dispute the 2-month notice, everybody just assumes that they're going to move. Tenants are deciding not to move because they can't find a place, and they don't identify that as being an issue until the last week or two before the closing of the real estate deal. Causes a huge problem. And now there's no process in place to get the tenant moved out. The transaction is at risk of imploding. Where we try to educate and help realtors is to make them aware of the situation and to encourage them to get their vendors to follow through after the 15-day period for the tenant to dispute has expired, to file right away with residential tenancy branch and start the process to get an order of possession. And if the timeline for the completion of the sale has been set out appropriately at somewhere in the 8 to 14 week period, then there's plenty of time in order to get that in place before the deal completes. That puts the landlord in a good position that if there's a problem, the tenant refuses to move for whatever reason, the landlord's in a position to get a writ of possession in Supreme Court and get bailiffs involved in order so that the transaction can be completed in a timely manner.
Right, so you kind of get the application in, and if there isn't a problem and the tenant moves out fine, then you don't even need it.
Exactly.
But if there's an issue, you have that in place and you don't have to do all that waiting.
It's really easy to abandon it. It's very difficult to play catch up on it.
So does your service just end up being another expense that the landlord has to pay?
It is an expense. It also can be an opportunity for the landlord to create more income. We recently did an inspection of a 90-unit building in Toronto. We identified 5 units in the building where the landlord really needed to be involved in moving those tenants along. We worked with the paralegal that the landlord had engaged, get an action going with the residential tenancy people in Ontario. 5 of those actions were initiated with the landlord-tenant branch. 3 of the tenants reacted right away by moving out of the building. They didn't want to go to an arbitration because they realized the evidence that we had on them. Well, the landlord was able to get in and remediate those units, paint, flooring, whatever he had to do, and he was able to rent those units out again. It increased his annual income by $18,600 a year for 3 units. Any expense that the landlord had with respect to inspections that we were doing was far outweighed by the income increase that he had.
So you work with all these retired policemen, and you're one yourself, 40 years of different kinds of law enforcement service. Do you still get involved with the law enforcement side of this now?
We do on occasion. When we're dealing with situations where this person is an occupant under the Act, they're not a tenant. And under the Act, occupants have no rights or responsibilities. I dealt with the situation, there were squatters living in a house. We were called by a real estate agent and asked if we could help in removing these people from the house. Once I realized that they weren't on the tenancy agreement, then they were only occupants in the house. I asked them to move their things out, and they did. I changed the locks so they couldn't get back in. And then they had interaction with the police. The police didn't understand at that point that they weren't tenants. So they said, well, they can't do that to you. You should be able to move back in. You end up with the police saying one thing and residential tenancy branch saying the opposite thing. What happened was, after talking to the police, the occupants went back and broke into the house and moved back in again and said, we have every right to be here because we were told that we could. The police said so.
What's the landlord supposed to do at this point?
Nobody had paid any rent, of course. We obtained an order of possession. And I don't blame the police in these situations. Residential tenancy issues aren't something that are a priority in terms of training. Because we have dealt with them in a kind of responsible way, it's helped landlords, it's helped the police to have a better understanding, it certainly has helped us in terms of the job that we do.
And eventually the landlords get their house back. Can people call you from all over Canada if they need your help?
We get calls from different places in Canada, and we are able to service different areas, and we don't necessarily have to be there to do it. 2014, when I retired from transit police, I decided to expand the business a little bit so that we could have the ability to operate in basically any province in Canada. There was really no business in place in not only British Columbia, but Canada, that could provide the kind of services that we could provide. 2 years later, my wife Anna retired and decided to get involved in the business. A lot of people refer to her as the brains of the outfit. I guess I'm the brawn. We became involved with landlord associations in British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario.
Give us another great story, Jim.
I was doing inspections in a condo development, came across a tenant who was in his early 80s. And he actually answered the door with a walker. We'll call him Lenny. Lenny answers the door and he says, oh, you're here to do the inspection. You can look at the whole place except for the bedroom. He says, my granddaughter's sleeping in the bedroom. And I said, oh, okay. I look at my watch and I say, oh, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When do you think your granddaughter will be up? And he says, oh, probably in about 15 or 20 minutes. And I said, oh, okay. Why don't I come back? And then I came back and the granddaughter was up. Okay. So I took a look at the granddaughter and I saw certain things that drew my attention right away. One was the stiletto heels that she was wearing, and I looked inside the bedroom door as I walked in, and there were stiletto heeled shoes lined up the whole length of the wall in the bedroom. On the night table in the bedroom, there was an open bottle of vodka and 2 glasses that had vodka and orange juice in them sitting on the night table. The rest of the night table was covered with condoms. And I took a look at the granddaughter and I thought, perhaps, okay? So I called Lenny off to the side and I said, Lenny, she's not your granddaughter, is she? And he goes, no. And I said, she's a prostitute, isn't she, Lenny? And he goes, yeah. And I said, Lenny, why do you have a prostitute using your bedroom? And he said, well, it's kind of a business deal. He says, she pays my rent and I sleep on a cot in the living room and she uses my bedroom. She brings her Johns up to the bedroom and she uses the bedroom for that. So it works for her and it works for me. I get free rent. So I thought about that for a second, and then I thought about the building itself and the mini crime wave that had been going on in the building for the last 1.5 to 2 years, and I thought, perhaps this is a contributing factor. So I told Lenny that couldn't happen anymore, and we ended up having to move Lenny and his granddaughter along, and surprisingly enough, the crime wave in the building almost came to a grinding halt. And you know, when you looked at this little old man with his walker, anybody would have rented to this guy. Absolutely anybody. You know, you looked at, oh, what a nice old guy, you know.
I'm sure that you have many grateful landlords. I'm going to provide all your information in the description below this video. Anyone wants to reach out to Jim, he's available. Thanks, Jim. That was great talking to you. I know everybody wants to be friends with Jim now. Anyone who needs to reach out to Jim can find him at ctiservices.ca, and I'll include a bunch of other contact information in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, just smoosh the like. Just smoosh the like. Thanks for watching, everybody. As ever, this is the Real Justine Priestley channel. I'm Justine Priestley. And remember, I'm here to help and I'm here for you. Reach out anytime.